We're calling it Coach Couch Conversations. I sit on my couch and talk to coaches. And
Oh, yeah.
for the big Orioles fan base that we have here, who know you from your work with Masson and obviously your Hall of Fame career with the O's, they might be wondering, well, how is this a coach conversation? Well, former skipper of the Norfolk Tides, what do you remember about those days here in lovely coastal Virginia back in the late 90s?
Well, I've got to say, the best part of it was actually dealing with Rosie, Dave Rosenfield. The guy is an icon, general manager, minor league general manager, well known all throughout baseball. Don't know how he didn't ever get a GM job with some team, but he's a pretty smart baseball guy, and I really enjoyed being with him for a couple. And actually, and I got to go back to spring training with the Mets because it was a Mets AAA at that time. And them telling me that I didn't have a very good ball club coming out of spring training, so not to worry about the win-loss so much and everything. But every manager worries about the win-loss, you know. I think back to those teams in 1997 and 98, and I had a couple of characters on that, but it really made baseball fun for me. Benny Agbayani, Todd Pratt were two of my favorite players, Matt Franco. I actually had Corey Lytle in my starting rotation at one point, and I'll tell you what, that guy was so good. It's such a tragedy, him and this airplane crash in New York, but I think he was just starting to be recognized as one of the better fastball pitchers in the game at that time. But I just had so much fun with Rosie. The people, the fans there were great. The team that I have was really fun to watch. And, you know, we went down to the very last day of the season. We were eliminated from playoff play in 97. But Benny Agbayani, Todd Pratt, who nobody gave them a nickel for their talent going in, ended up in the big leagues, and I was very proud of that. Those two guys were really something to watch play, and they just had a lot of heart for the game. There, you know, in Norfolk, I'll never forget what I told him. I said, you know, Todd Pratt can help you at the major league level. We went to spring training. I'll tell you a funny story. Todd had gotten frustrated with the game in 97, my first year with the Mets at spring training. And he left baseball for almost a year, for a season, I should say, and then came back. And that morning I was introduced to him. He said, "Oh, Mr. Dempsey, I've known and watched your career for a long time." He says, "This is really great. I enjoy being back with the Mets, and I just want to make your team as a backup player. That would be so much fun for me." And I looked at him. I had to look up. He was about 6'4", 6'5". And I said, "Todd, listen, it'd be great. I'd be happy to work with you, but come back here as a backup job in AAA ball, and don't show up tomorrow." And I thought that big guy was going to start, and he had this look on his face like, "Oh, geez, I really didn't mean it that way." So, well, listen, if this is the way you meant it, that you want to get better as a catcher, make it to the big leagues, okay, and be a good player, I said, "Then I'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow morning." He goes, "Okay, that's what I want. That's what I want." And this guy, he outplayed. I had a 40-man roster player there, Charlie Green. He outplayed Charlie. Charlie had some pretty good defensive skills, but got off to a slow start, and Todd just blew him out of the water. I mean, he took control of that ball club. I didn't even have to manage because Todd Pratt ran that team along with Benny Agbayani. I just had the best time watching these guys interact with players. We had a really fun team at that time.
Well, that is fantastic, and I appreciate you telling the stories. Obviously, now the Tides are the AAA club of the Orioles, a club that you know so well, Rick. Obviously, they are in the rebuilding stage. 108 losses last year, but nowhere to go but up. Do you sense the optimism building with Mike Elias and and Brandon Hyde, new bosses in town? Do you feel a little bit of momentum coming around the corner?
I really do. I saw it with a couple of players that came up last year to the major league level, and the energy level that they brought with them is what you expect to see from a young player. And, I think you get a real true evaluation of a player's talent at Norfolk, Virginia, because it's not an easy place to play. The ball doesn't travel well there on the water. The wind blows in from right field. So all of the elements are against you in that ballpark. Great stadium, a beautiful ballpark, but when a guy comes up and he hits 280 and 290 out of the minor leagues at AAA ball, you're saying, well, he might be an okay player in the minor leagues. At the major league level, he isn't going to be all that good. Well, I've seen a lot of people come out of that international league that perform better at the major league level than they did in AAA baseball. And it's just a tough place to play. And it gives you a true evaluation of what you're going to get at the major league level. And we got a lot of guys coming out of AAA ball this year from that league, and it's going to be exciting. I want to see our A-ball lefties and righties come and pitch at Norfolk. I think that's a good way to see how they're going to pitch, changing speeds, keeping the ball down, and you're going to get a better evaluation. Managed in Pacific Coast League and won the Pacific Coast League title before I ever came to Norfolk. And the batting averages there were so much higher, 365, 340, 350, all these RBIs. The ball traveled so much, you can't really tell what kind of a player that person's going to be at the major league level. You get a true evaluation there in Norfolk.
I remember the PCL well. I worked in Texas before I came here. So some of those numbers from like El Paso and Vegas, when those they're playing at elevation, you're like, wow, this guy has 29 homers at the break. It's like, oh yeah, he's playing in El Paso,
All my guys ever cared about in the Pacific Coast League was seeing how far they could hit it in batting practice. And I know Billy Ashley was a big player. He was like 6'5", 6'6", and he could hit the ball 600 feet. I'm not kidding you, in those ballparks. And it was fun to watch, but you couldn't develop guys like
that. Obviously, you had the illustrious career playing up in Baltimore. You won the '83 series. You won the MVP. For folks that have spent time up in Camden Yards, and so many of our viewers have, because it is such a great place to go and catch a game. It's such a good baseball town and a sports crazy town. We saw what they did with the Ravens last year as they started to win. Knowing what it means to Baltimore to have a winner, does that almost make you want to see this club turn things around? Because you have been there, Rick.
I know it. I mean, I was lucky to come into the organization when they were on the upslide. They were going up. Mitch Robinson, Boog Powell, Frank Robinson, Mark Belanger, Paul Blair, guys like that made that organization the best organization in all of baseball. We developed players at the minor league level that nobody thought were going to be any good. Don Baylor ended up being one of those. Ricky Dower. Players like that once they got to the major league level, it was easy for them to settle in because they were not only good hitters, they were good defensive players, and they understood the game. You learn the game from a guy like Earl Weaver. He did not care about the name on the back of the uniform. He cared about the name on the front. He wanted to win. And it didn't matter how mad he was at you for making a mistake the day before. If he thought you were the guy that should be in the game, the next day, you were in that lineup, and it didn't matter. And he demanded that we do the fundamentals properly every single day. I can remember walking out on the field, and if I dropped the ball playing catch while I was talking with the guys, he would scream at the game, Dempsey, catch the ball, And that was him from sundown in my time in that organization. But you learned good, hard, fundamental baseball. And that was what was going to take that organization to the finish line. That organization, that city demanded it. And that's what made that city great and those teams great.